Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Bibbs, Alonso, summer proceeds apace with the upcoming release of Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets coming out next week, but we can talk about it now, so we're going to.
Ha ha! Let's take it away. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is the latest film from Luc Besson, who of course directed The Fifth Element and also La Femme Nikita and The Professional. It is his most expensive and ambitious movie in a really long time, and is an adaptation of a highly influential comic book series called Valerian and Laureline, which heavily inspired Star Wars in the first place. Let's take a look.
This mission is a simple in and out. Agent Valerian, you'll be running solo.
I only work with my partner.
Hi.
We're a team. Let's go.
You're running nearly 20 minutes late.
Yeah, well, time flies when you're having fun.
As I was watching this movie, I was watching it with my fellow film critic, Whitney Seibold,
Yes.
Next to me. And there were sequences in this movie that were so mind-poppingly gorgeous that the only thing he could do was just sort of clutch me like it's so breathtaking how visually exciting and innovative and gorgeous, and how many sequences there are, action sequences there are in this movie that I have literally never seen before.
There are some moments that are pretty breathtaking when they go into Big Market, which is the sort of like interdimensional crammed together marketplace that just seems to keep going and going in every direction. Yeah, it's pretty stunning. But then I thought, oh, it's like Blade Runner, but more, much more. Yeah, no, this is a lot of things. This movie,
Yes,
it is on the, you've got this sort of a love story in the middle of where Dane DeHaan as Valerian, apparently has like so many conquests behind him, but now he's ready to settle down with Laureline, his partner, who's played by Cara Delevingne. And already I'm like, Dane DeHaan? Dane DeHaan?
Okay, I'm gonna say this right now. I am very enamored of this movie. I loved watching this movie. And we're gonna talk more about just the incredible travel log this movie takes you on, and the incredibly innovative way in which Luc Besson presents this fantastic world that I've never seen before in a movie. But Dane DeHaan is the weak link, and I never thought I'd say that.
No, he's a terrific actor.
A spectacular actor.
But so miscast here.
Look, I've read some of the comics, but I'm not super familiar with Valerian and Laureline. Which, by the way, thanks for taking Laureline's name out of the
Yeah, I know.
Cara Delevingne steals this
Bust
whole movie,
her
by
to
the way.
second movie. Well,
I think she's quite good.
I think this movie would be great without Valerian and Laureline. I think everything else is terrific.
Cara Delevingne, I think she plays this real well. I think there's a certain
I'm sorry.
pulpiness.
Shut up, phone.
There's a certain pulpiness to the material that Luc Besson is not afraid to embrace. He's not trying to elevate the material. He's trying to go full Euro cheese sci-fi pulp in a great and kind of refreshing way. And I think Cara Delevingne is on board with that. I think she has got the snarky, sexy, confident, empowered, broad character. Like the big, larger than life character. And I think Dane DeHaan is on the opposite wavelength. He is underplaying it in a way that doesn't really fit the material. He's too cool for school, and the school is not cool.
Yeah, that's true. No, this is a movie that is all about its sort of wild extravagances and excesses, and yeah, I think that DeHaan. In my review, I said like young Palpatine, yes. Young Han Solo, no. And he is supposed to be Han Solo.
Alden Ehrenreich was taken.
Yeah, but he is clearly supposed to be the sort of like winking, rakish, ne'er do well cad. It's like
I don't buy him as
no.
It's weird. I don't buy him as
not
this
every actor
ladies'
can
man.
do every role.
There's this scene where they literally show pictures of all of his sexual conquests on the wall.
Yeah, and you're like, Dane DeHaan?
And the thing is that the movie is so. I thought maybe what would happen is that the movie would slow down a bit, and we'd see that he plays like the long game, and he just sort of like woos them with his casual, smolder. And the movie is too breathless for that. It keeps moving on. What the movie is plot-wise is there's a big conspiracy involving a space station on which 1,000 different civilizations live. Space station is like the size of a planet. Different planets are represented in different environments, and there's this incredible sequence where Dane DeHaan punches his way through walls and ends up on different planets every time with different gravity and different. it's insane.
Although one of them is underwater, and I thought, the hole in the wall, that's not going to be good for the water.
There's that thing they have in a lot of sci-fi movies, like in Star Trek, where, oh no, there's the photon torpedo broke through the hull, but we have a force field that goes up to protect it.
Of course, yeah, no. I didn't think about it too long, don't worry.
I was willing to.
Not that you can think about anything too long in this movie, because there's just this constant barrage of stuff and things, which is one of the selling points, clearly.
I think it's the biggest selling point. Like, I remember a lot of people were sort of like falling over themselves over Avatar, about how beautiful Avatar was and how they had created this fully realized world. In Valerian, there are hundreds of those worlds that feel just as gorgeous to me, and we just glance by them because they're not the point. It's so visually inventive that you almost don't have time. But then it slows down enough for you to live in one that you appreciate it.
But here's the thing, though. I think Avatar is one of the few times where I had to occasionally remind myself, oh wait, I'm sitting in a theater with these glasses, the second pair of glasses on my head, and watching this, because it did feel so immersive. But part of why that happens is because you spend a long time there.
That's right.
And in this movie, you're such a tourist, and you're like looking at somebody's slideshow at 100 times, per second, that it's like, here's the thing. I had fun at this movie, but I had fun in this movie in the way that I had fun at Jupiter Ascending. So if that's a trigger for you,
people haven't come around to Jupiter Ascending.
If you're like, oh well, then fuck no, then this is not for you. But
there is an entire breed of classic genre cinema that did not hit when it first came out, because it was too weird, it was too distinctive, it was presenting people with something they'd never seen before and weren't ready to see. Now, Valerian has a very straightforward plot. I wish the plot was a little bit more emotional. I think it gets there when you realize what it touches upon in terms of politics and forgiving your oppressors, and it gets into some stuff.
Yeah. If you were worried that you weren't going to get the Luc Besson love speech, you're getting the Luc Besson love speech.
Don't worry about it. But there is an entire wonderful subgenre of films that were kind of too weird to be successful when they came out. And every single time, about 10 years later, people like, oh God, why didn't we appreciate Starship Troopers the first time around? Why didn't we appreciate Flash Gordon the first time around? Why didn't we appreciate Speed Racer the first time around? And then every single time we do it again. And I think Valerian, for all of its weirdness, and I can appreciate being a little off-put by some of its weirdness, because it does not fit traditional Western molds of what sci-fi fantasy should be, but I find those molds very restrictive. I find Star Wars is kind of leading the charge in terms of what people think of as sci-fi fantasy, and Star Wars is about as old now as Flash Gordon was when Star Wars came out. It was about
the original Flash
Gordon. Yeah, it's the institution, and it has been recycling itself for a long time. Now, Star Wars is great. I'm not complaining about Star Wars, but it's not introducing us to new wonders the way it once did. Valerian is introducing us to new stuff, and even though, Dane DeHaan is miscast. Arguably, Cara Delevingne is. I think she's fine. And even though the plot is kind of standard pulp stuff, so was the plot of Rogue One. So I'm not going to complain about that. It is presenting us with so many new and exciting things that I think to not support this and then ever go on a rant about how blockbusters are too samey nowadays is hypocrisy. There's so much amazing stuff in this movie that it deserves to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's it. It deserves to be seen. It is a visual experience that's worth going to see in the theater and pay for the 3D, do the whole shebang.
Yeah, I never say that, but see this one in 3D.
But
it's really cool.
It is also a hot mess. I mean, it is a hot mess. We can't pretend that's not happening. This movie is so all over the place and overdone and over Euro,
How can you be over what you are? I mean, that's the selling point, isn't it? That it's different. That it plays.
You know what? One slice of cake is great. Well, the entire cake is a little much.
How did you feel about Fifth Element? The first time
I didn't like the Fifth Element. So that's another thing.
I remember when the Fifth Element came out, I saw this movie and I fucking loved the Fifth Element.
Jupiter Ascending is the movie that I think that's bananas that I like, and I like the Wachowski's brand of too much more than I like Besson's brand of too much.
Fair enough.
But even said that, I don't like Speed Racer either.
Okay.
Like, I get why people love Speed Racer, but it never I found it too much.
That's fair. My point is, when I saw the Fifth Element the first time, I thought, oh my God, here is a interpretation of a science fiction futuristic universe that has elements that we've seen before and stuff that we've literally never seen before, told in a storytelling fashion that is so dynamic and distinctive. The parallel edits in that movie are so off the wall, wonderful. That I recommended it to everybody, and then people saw it, and they were just like, "I am never listening to it again." and I think time has been kind to The Fifth Element. Now, I don't think Valerian is going to have that sort of quotable impact, but I do think it is firing on that pure imagination, that absolute kaleidoscopic, wondrous quality. And there's a lot of things I really like even about the story. I like that Valerian and Laureline save each other in repeated fashion. Each one of them takes turns being the damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Their banter may be a little off because of Dane DeHaan's interpretation of the material, but the story plays it out, and I actually bought their dynamic.
And we should mention Rihanna as a shape-shifting stripper.
That's a weird bit. I did not expect to see that.
That is a very weird bit, but I was I was entertained. I mean, I was never bored by this movie. That's saying something. And this is absolutely going to be a cult film. This is absolutely going to be a movie that certain people cling to their bosom and like will champion for decades to come. And you're right, decades from now, people will be more open to its brand of craziness because the movies will sort of catch up to it. This is like the next wave of, like all the things at the same time, And
I think you should get it on the ground floor. I think there's a lot of films that try to achieve this sort of forward-thinking momentum, but so many of them get trapped in their own time.
Sure.
And because they're trying to be cool, hip, now, the new thing. Valerian is the old thing, but writ large in a way that they could never have done before. And I just got that sense of extempore that I honestly haven't had from a lot of sci-fi since The Fifth Element, and before that, the first couple of Star Wars movies.
I will say, no one's gonna leave this movie going, eh.
Yeah.
They're either gonna be super on board or they're gonna be like, what the fuck did I just see?
And what the fuck did I just see is, again, I think a selling point.
Not a bad thing. I mean, and some people will aggressively loathe it, and that's fine, but at least they'll have, it will generate something in them. They're not gonna walk away and be like, all right, well, that's fine, what's for lunch?
Think about how many just adequate movies we have. Something like the latest Pirates was just sort of just like, Think about how much time, effort, and money it took to make me go, I'll forget about it in a month.
Right.
You will not forget Valerian. There's so many odd, weird, wonderful, and sometimes maybe ill-conceived things in it that I think is definitely worth the price of admission. And I think you're right. I think it's gonna be a cult classic at some point, and I think it's good to get in on the ground floor.
So, fair enough.
I loved it. I loved it.
For
all of its flaws, I loved it.
And so what is your number?
I'm gonna give it a 9.2. I think Dane DeHaan's performance sinks it a little bit, and I wish the overall storyline had been a bit more about their individual characters. But ultimately, everything exciting and new and visually absolutely thrilling about it overwhelms it. And I think that ultimately becomes what the movie is about.
All right. I thought it was a little too much of a good thing, but I still am glad I saw it. I give it a 7. So that's an 8.1 from us, and it is currently at 68% on the tomato meter. But yeah, I think you're right. This is a movie that time will have the last say on.
And the Fly wants in too. The Fly loved it.
Jeff Goldblum, get out of here. All right. So Valerian, it opens next Friday, and you should see.
You should see it. You should see it. It's something else, man. Something else.